Welcome back to the whole podcast, KC. I'm your host, Kirby Huff. And today we have J.K. Smith with us. He is a non emergency driver in our transportation department. So we'll go ahead and get started. JK, so tell me, how long have you been here with the whole person?
In total, 3 years, but I was gone for a couple of years in between there, so 3 years.
Okay. Because you are retired, correct? And you just
Correct.
work 3 days a week, right?
I do.
Nice. Nice to have Mondays and Fridays off.
It is, but, they work me plenty hours, those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays
So
off.
you need that extra couple days off to recover.
Well, it's nice.
Yeah, for sure. So what does transportation look like here at the whole person?
Um, well, we are non-emergency medical transportation people, so we're picking up and delivering people to their medical, appointments. It could be therapy, something like that, or going to the doctor in general. So
Okay.
anything that's non-emergency.
Okay. And how does the funding work for that? Does the consumer pay for it or how does that work?
The funding, well, um, we work with a company called MTM, which is the intermediary for the state of Missouri. They have the contract for the state of Missouri for non-emergency medical transportation for all the companies that participate in that. But that's run by Medicaid, Medicare and Medicaid at the governmental level. So 99% of our clients that we transport are on Medicaid.
Okay.
So they are not paying for that.
Great. So I guess you said it's a non-emergency medical equipment, or medical transportation. What makes it different from the consumer grabbing a Lyft or an Uber?
They would pay for that. This is as long as they're going through MTM and making their appointments and so forth for transportation, they're not paying for that. That is free.
Okay.
Lyft and Uber, just like getting a cab.
Right, right. And then also, is there differences in how you assist them? Like sometimes do you have to get out of the car to assist and help to and from the car and to appointments or um
Yeah, I'll go into that for a second. And I know you're probably going to ask what's the difference between the whole person and everybody else that does this. So let's
right.
let's just jump into that.
Sure.
Um, we provide what we call door through the door service, as opposed to door to door.
Okay.
And what that means, um, our clients can be ambulatory. They can be on a walker or crutches or a cane, but many of them are in wheelchairs, both manual and electrified. So when we are on the way to pick up someone, we're calling them first and telling them we're on the way, when we'll be there. And when we get there, I'm asking them. I call them again and say, "Do you need assistance in coming out?" And generally speaking, I just get out of the van and go to the door because um, on a lot of occasions we need to enter their apartment, um, their home, or in the case of nursing homes, obviously we're going inside and retrieving them. But a lot of people need assistance in putting their footrests on, or putting a jacket on, or finishing up what they're doing so they can come out. Those, especially people that are in a wheelchair. Um, and we're securing them in the van. Again, I'm speaking of people that have a disability where they cannot just get in the front seat and ride. So these are people with walkers and wheelchairs. They're being secured in the back, and we're using our iPad to verify who they are and where they're going, where we're dropping them off. That differs from normal non-emergency transportation companies in Kansas City, is in most of them are not going to assist them getting out of their residence. They're going to be sitting out front waiting for that person to be brought out by someone in the nursing home, or they're going to come out on their own. So we kind of pride ourselves in taking a vested interest in the client, and that we're helping them get to where they need to be instead of just a cab ride,
Right.
if
So
that
you
makes
you go
sense.
like an extra step then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cuz I don't I mean I obviously I Uber a lot cuz I don't drive and there's not very many times, even when I do tell them I'm visually impaired, they don't get out of the car. They'll
Well,
usually honk at me. I'm like, "Oh, thanks. That's
and
polite."
it's important that for me and the drivers is to be conversational with these people.
Right.
Um, I think of an Uber ride as they're probably not going to speak to you other than where are you going and I want to take you there.
Yeah, it
And
depends. Sometimes you get talkers and you're like, "Okay."
and it, it's important that we have a conversation with them so we can kind of judge how they're doing because some of these people, this is their only opportunity that they get to get out,
Right.
and
You wanna
they
make that
need
a good
to.
experience for them.
True, but we also want to notice if there's anything unusual about their behavior. If they're going to dialysis, we have a lot of dialysis patients, and if they're lethargic or something like that, we're asking them or asking the staff if it's a nursing home, are they they all right this morning? They might just be sleepy,
Right.
but again, it's back to that we're invested in their health care,
Right.
so we want to make sure that um, everything's fine for them, and if we see something that's not normal, that we're reporting that to the medical team where we're taking him. Whether it's a doctor's appointment or dialysis, we're letting them know, hey, he's complaining about leg pain this morning.
Right.
So things like that.
Sure. Okay. So, how would you, suggest, consumers prioritize the whole person,
Hmm.
um,
I have
as their transportation option?
um, again back to MTM as the distributor of rides in the state of Missouri. They're kind of dealt down to us. We have regulars that we pick up all the time, but otherwise they're going to just send rides to us the night before, so they come up on our iPad. Um, how they should prioritize, and the reason they want to prioritize the whole person is a day doesn't go by that I don't hear complaints from people I'm transporting, and their first thing they say is, "I'm so glad the whole person is picking me up." Why?
Oh, that's great to hear.
Why? Because they get left on the curb. No one shows up to pick them up, or worse yet, on their what we call their B leg when they're going back home. They don't come pick them up, and that happens often. So a lot of them say, "How can I make sure I ride with the whole person all the time?" We don't control that. MTM, as I said, deals out those rides, and we do have a few people that are on regulars because they're dialysis patients and go 3 times a week.
Right.
But the best way for a client is to call MTM, which is where they make their appointments with them for transportation, and ask to speak to a customer service person and say, I would like to ride with the whole person. And they're going to say, why? And hopefully they're going to say, because I never have to worry about them being late, not picking me up, or taking me home. And if it doesn't work the first, just keep calling them.
Are there a lot of other options for them other than the whole person?
Um, I guess I'd answer that by saying to get that type of service, I would say no.
Right.
There are dozens of other non emergency medical transportation companies out there, and some of them are very good, but they don't go that extra step, that door through the service,
Right.
because I've worked for other transportation companies here, and our job was to pick them up and drop them off.
Yeah,
End of story.
that leads right to my next question with, have you worked in other transportation, industries before?
I have. Here in town, I work for another transportation company.
And you prefer the whole person, I'm assuming?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, and how would you say that it contributes to the overall well-being of the consumer? I mean, you've mentioned, you're more than a door-to-door service, but
Well,
anything else?
I mean, these people are going to the doctor for a reason, right? And it's not always it's something they get apprehensive about, probably in many cases. So if they know they're being picked up by the whole person, I know it puts them at ease. And they see our vans, they know that they're going to be treated right. And I don't mean to say that that other transportation companies mistreat people or anything like that, but there is
Right.
a high incidence of no-shows, very late, picking them up an hour, 2 hours after their appointment. They're still waiting. Um, so it puts them at ease to know that that's not gonna happen with the whole person. It doesn't happen.
Okay. Could you share with us a success story from your experience here with the whole person?
I think I have a couple.
Great.
One, I showed up at a house, to pick someone up that was in a wheelchair, and I know that ahead of time what their condition is, I guess. Um, and I see a young lady up on a deck about 4 feet off the ground with steps leading down, and she had a male, which was her husband, in a wheelchair, and she was about ready to try and go down those 4 steps to the ground level. And I jumped out of the van and going over, and she was already outside waiting. I'm saying, "What are you doing?" "Well, I need to get him down there." I'm like, "Isn't there another
Oh.
way to get him out of the home?" And she said, "No."
Oh, okay.
She said, "We just moved into this rental home. We don't have a ramp or anything like that." And I'm like, "Well, you and I are going to have to basically just lift his wheelchair together and get him down." So when I came back to the office, I talked to Michael, the CEO, and I said, here's the issue."
Mhm.
And we were able to get a ramp built for those people
Wow,
through
wonderful.
through the whole person.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's an example of that's not going to happen with
No.
ABC Transportation. They don't do
No.
that. I mean, that's
No.
not their job.
Right.
Um, let's see. Well, I mentioned that a lot of our clients are in nursing homes, and nursing homes are very understaffed, all of them.
Sure.
And so usually when I go into a nursing home, it's like they're in room 203. Go ahead and go get them, which is common. So we find them and have a lady that goes to dialysis 3 times a week, and she's elderly. And it was that one of those weeks when we had really cold weather, 0. And when I went to her room, she had a sweater on, no jacket, no coat. And I asked the aide, "Where's her jacket?" Oh, they couldn't find it. So I grabbed 2 blankets and put them around her because she has to go to dialysis. Um, you know, things like that
Others aren't
again,
probably gonna
others are
even
probably
not
not
even
going to
gonna think
do.
about.
Another one, again, in wintertime, bad weather situation. I pulled up to a place. The guy had an electric wheelchair, and he had a ramp. And this is when we had about 4 or 5 inches of snow, and
Oh, yeah.
nothing had been shuffled.
Oh, no.
And so we got down the ramp, okay,
Mhm.
together, and he had a driveway that was again 4 or 5 inches deep, and I knew it was going to be difficult, but so I said, "Okay, I'm going to get behind you. It's an electric chair, so it's powered, but it wasn't going anywhere."
Right.
So I told him to put it in forward, put it in the fastest it would go, and then I would push at the same time because it was like a snowplow. It was just wasn't going anywhere. So
Right.
things like that my experience in driving for another company they probably would have just said, we're not going to be able to take you today.
Right. You have to
Can't do it."
reschedule. Yeah. Awesome. That's
Mm,
great.
So
Well, we need to take a break for an ad, and we will be right back.
Are you an adaptive athlete? Are you ready for your first ever adaptive sports competition in Kansas City? Well, here it is. The Kansas City Ultimate Games is having its inaugural season, hosted by The Whole Person, a proud Move United member. Set your calendars for June 13th to the 16th for bocce, adaptive cycling, and para powerlifting. Unleash your spirit and conquer the challenge. Come get it.
All right, welcome back here with JK, our non-emergency transportation driver. Okay, how has your role here with the whole person um, made it easier for you to understand about transporting individuals with disabilities?
um, well, that's kind of a difficult question to answer, but I guess the thing I would say is without non-emergency medical transport and um, having Medicaid cover those costs, that many of these people would just not go.
Right.
They might make an appointment and decide that I'm not paying for it if I have to use the Uber or Lyft. But if it's one of the Medicaid people, then the bottom line is they're not going to get medical care. And for some of these people, it's like, I'm just not going. And, that's important that they get medical care, but some of them are in a mental state that says, I'm just going to blow it off.
Right. Well, it's definitely important that they make it to these appointments to just keep them going.
Yeah.
So what is there any particular training involved when doing the non-emergency transport?
Right. MTM and the government, Medicaid and so forth, requires when you become an employee, you have to go through. They call them assessments,
Hmm.
but as I remember, it's about 3 or 4 days of sitting on a computer and taking test after test, listening to um, people reciting how you're supposed to do things, and then taking tests, and that takes up to a week. Beyond that, the state of Missouri is required to train all the drivers on securing wheelchairs, walkers, and such, and how to do that the proper way. Make sure they're secured properly. Then some of the other testing that we do is more medical. We have to be CPR certified, Red Cross certified for CPR, handling bloodborne pathogens, just on and on, a lot of other things. So there's quite a bit of training. And then yearly, you have to be reassessed and take those all again. Um, Drug testing, driver's records, etc.
Yeah, you were just saying before we started here, you were just doing that this week, right? All
Hmm.
these trainings. And what's the most difficult part of the trainings and the tests for you?
Sitting at the computer and doing that for hours and hours.
Yeah.
No. Um, well,
Not
probably
fun.
some of the more technical, how to handle bloodborne pathogens and what the vehicles are for bloodborne pathogen besides broken skin. There's other ways you can be infected. Um, so they get kind of technical, and they go through all the information, and then you have to take the assessment or the test afterwards. So you're trying to remember, is it A, B, C, or D? They're always multiple choice, and
Right.
some of them sound alike. But and then we have to go to the Red Cross and do the CPR and all that other thing at Red Cross. So you have a Red Cross certification. I think that's. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it.
Okay. That makes sense.
The last thing I have on here is the recruiters or the people that are doing the interviewing of potential drivers.
Hmm.
Is we need to have a list of questions that are related to this. It's not just a driving job.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people might come in thinking,
It's
"Oh,
more detailed than that.
yeah," some to try and get into a little bit whether this is really for them. So,
Right.
because we lose people because they take all these tests, do all this, and go, "Oh, I didn't know it was going to be like this."
Yeah, maybe like in the interview process, asking questions and like, okay, if you're in this scenario, what would you do? Just like in the wheelchair scenario with the stairs, like a lot of drivers would probably be like,
We're not taking you,
we're not taking you. Yeah. And you made it work. So
and that's
you have to go that extra step.
yeah, and that's important to me. I'm going to do whatever it takes within the guidelines and the law to
Right.
make sure that they get where they need to go and they have the things they need. And that the other thing is I'm going to convey anything that I think should be conveyed to their caregivers that may go unnoticed because they may live alone and no one's checking on them. I pick them up and say, there's something wrong here. So
Right.
yeah, it takes someone with a little more insight and somebody that is caring
Right. It's a
and
big heart. It's important.
is invested in these people as if they're a relative.
Right. Right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, JK. We really appreciate you coming in on your day off
No, no
and
problem.
answering all these questions. So just as always, the events that we have going on is the third week in the month, third Wednesday of the month. We have bowling at KC Bowl and KCK at noon. And if you are, bowling with us with a disability, The whole person does pay for the first round or the first game of a bowling. And then the second Saturday of the month, we have rock climbing. For more information on that, be sure to check out our website at thewholeperson.org. And then also, of course, we have our registration and volunteer signups for our KC Ultimate Games. And you can check that out and sign up for volunteering at kcultimategames.org. Thanks for joining with us today, and we'll see you next time.